very warm welcome to this very insightful panel discussion. The topic for today is building financial resilience, how to secure your investments amid economic uncertainty. Now, amid the COVID-19 surge and an uncertain economy, the big question on everyone's mind is what would be the best investment options in 2021? Joining us for this very special chat is Manish Kumar, who is the Chief Investment Officer of ICICI Prudential Life Insurance. Thank you, Manish, for joining us today. But before we go on to the questions, let me set a little bit of context in terms of a survey that I was recently reading about. It was the CMIE CPDX survey, which was the Consumer Pyramids Household Survey. Now, the survey revealed, and they asked more than 2 lakh households on their income situation and as it stands today. So now what they did ask them is how their income stood today as compared to a year ago. And only about 3% said that their income was better than a year ago. And about 55% said that it was worse than a year ago, and the remaining said that there was no change in their income. So to discuss this in terms of where the money can be invested, what are the kind of plans that people can go with when it comes to overall financial planning, Manish, you're going to help us decode what it really takes in terms of what the best investment options would be for 2021. With this context in mind, Manish, I want to ask you about what your view is of the economy, considering that we're living in such uncertain times, in terms of how COVID-19 has impacted the world economy at large. What's your view on this?
Thanks, Priya, for setting the context so beautifully. Let me take you through early 2020 when COVID actually struck. Different countries responded differently. Some opted for partial or localized lockdown, while some had to go for a national lockdown. As a result, there was a material decline in GDP during the June quarter of 2020, thereby forcing policymakers to respond aggressively, both by way of monetary as well as fiscal stimuli. As a consequence, we finally witnessed recovery in the September quarter and quite a good growth in the subsequent quarters. In terms of the impact on the various sectors, we observed divergent trends. Digital businesses flourished. Personal mobility as a theme picked up. Certain sectors, like the services sectors, managed to come back well, while the manufacturing sector took a while to make a comeback. On the other hand, certain sectors which are actually consumer facing, including some of the services sectors like travel and tourism, airlines, hospitality, or retail, they suffered a major setback. Coming to financial markets, thanks to abundant monetary stimuli and also the fact that people who were working out of home managed to save more, this led to fairly strong trends in financial markets. We saw a good recovery as we moved through the year, and that recovery has continued so far. Another phenomenon that we saw was that inflation has trended up, again because of the various impact of monetary stimuli and also some amount of supply disruption that has happened. We believe that going forward, as nations vaccinate their population, we are going to see positive trends in the sectors that were adversely impacted. On the other hand, some of the digital businesses that have been seeing strong trends may see some amount of normalization.
When you talk about the domestic economy, there are various investment trends that have been shaping up over the last couple of months. What, according to you, is your perspective on how the domestic economy has really shaped up amid these uncertain times?
That's a very pertinent question. So India was one of the few nations in the world that opted for complete lockdown. As a consequence, while we could win over the first wave of COVID better than most other countries, at the same time, the initial impact on the economy was quite severe. Thankfully, due to constant intervention by the government as well as RBI, we managed to turn around quickly in the September quarter, and we had a pretty robust December and March quarters. We observed two important trends in the Indian context. One, people in white-collar jobs moved to working out of home. And here I really applaud the Indian corporate sector for managing the transition so well. On the other hand, we also have a very large migrant population who are usually employed in blue collar jobs. They actually had to, or rather were forced to go back to their native places for lack of proper jobs. As a result, we actually observe certain spending patterns, like for example, uh, consumer spends on durables like ACs, TVs, dishwashers, uh, and other domestic appliances. They all went through the roof. In fact, all items required for home improvement uh, saw a surge in demand. The demand not only came from the big cities, they also came from rural India. They also came from the migrant population who had gone back to their native places. In fact, I may like to add that it did not stop at home improvement. Uh, in fact, the demand for new homes also saw a good surge, uh, thanks to reduction in stamp duty by the governments as well as reduction in interest rates. Another important trend that we observed was people have been saving a lot more because they have not been going out. That led to channelization of more and more savings into the financial markets, which is actually responsible partly for the kind of buoyancy that we are seeing in the markets today. Almost 80% of the trading volumes today are being accounted for by the retail investors. So in a way, we started this journey with quite a bit of setback and negative impact, but we seem to have come out stronger as an economy.
Right. While India is coming stronger as an economy, businesses, as you see, are getting more and more resilient. They're adapting to this uncertainty. They're learning how to deal with this volatility in the market. And as you were mentioning, household savings have also gone up significantly, considering that there are lesser avenues of spending at this point in time, considering that there are lockdowns in multiple parts of the country. But what does this really mean for investors out there? I mean, how should they channelize these kind of savings and invest them to put it to good use?
Well, I think there are certain standard mantras of investing which one ought to be very clear about. And this is something which is not rocket science. I'm not speaking this for the first time, but people normally tend to forget. So let me start by focusing first on financial investing and what are those mantras. So one is it's important to start saving early. Second, it's important to invest systematically or regularly. It's extremely important to spend time in the market rather than trying to time the market. Please invest both in equity as well as debt asset classes rather than trying to invest only in debt or only in equity. We have seen a lot of investors who invest only in equity markets when the markets are going up and vice versa. That temptation should be avoided. And finally, the most important messaging, please stick to your asset allocation. And that is going to be a function of basically your age, income, and risk profile. So for example, if you are young or if you have higher income levels, then you can go for higher allocation to equity and vice versa. Apart from that, there are other angles which I would like to bring here. One, it is very important to bucket your savings across the various tenor brackets. So for example, the short-term component of your savings should be kept in those investment avenues which are quite liquid. So for example, the money that you put with the banks, they're quite liquid. You can actually take out on a day's notice. The medium term part of your corpus should be invested with the mutual funds. And for us, the medium term is say anywhere between 1 to 5 years. But the moment you're talking about your long-term part of the corpus, where the investment horizon is more than 5 years, maybe 10 years or more, that is something which should be parked with the insurance companies. And this is how you should be planning your savings. Given the context of COVID and the environment that we are in, I would like to bring out one very important point when we are doing financial planning. For most of us, financial planning is just about managing savings and trying to maximize investment returns. According to me, it should capture all aspects of financial security. And this extends beyond savings. It is about securing your family, not just through your savings, but by taking adequate life as well as health covers. And this is one big lesson that all of us should have learned from this episode.
Right, Manish. Thank you so much for these insightful tips, and I'm sure our viewers out here are taking down notes in terms of how to plan for, in these uncertain times. But I want to talk to you about, goal-based investment plans and why these are more relevant in these days. So, if you can share some perspective on the importance of goal-based investments for the investors at this point.
Yeah, so let me try and explain to you, Priya, what we mean by goal-based investing. Goal-based investing means you assess your future requirements and see what your long-term goals are. You may want to buy a house, let's say after 10 years. You may want to marry off your daughter, say after 15 years. You may plan for your retirement after 25 years. So these are the goals that you may be having, which you will want to achieve. Now, in order to achieve those goals, it is important that you try and work backwards and see what kind of savings are required to be able to meet your goals. And then based on that assessment and those calculations, you need to then assess how much you need to save based on your current income levels. So let me try and take one example. Let us say your annual income is 12 lakhs. And based on your assessment of future goals, you arrive at a number of, say, 4 lakhs that you need to save in the current year. And possibly what it means is every year, 1/3 of your income needs to be saved. Now, once you know this number and once you start saving with this discipline, what it will do is you will be able to manage your expenses within the 8 lakhs that you are left with. This will ensure that you are not consuming your future savings which is required to meet your goals. So that entails or that brings in a lot of discipline in spending habits, and in a way it also secures your future.
Manish, just a follow-up question to that in terms of goal-based investing. Do you think this can be modified from time to time? Can one review these kind of investments? Can goals change every year, perhaps, for individuals and investors?
So can this be reviewed? Answer is yes. Can goals change over a period of time? Answer is also yes. But should they be reviewed every 6 months or every year? Answer is possibly no. I think it is important that one should be very clear about your goals and then plan accordingly.
Right. Moving on to one very important aspect, which is how do life insurance products enable this kind of goal-based investing? If you can share your views on that.
Sure, Priya. So as you would know, we operate in the space where the investment horizon is more than 5 years and possibly 10 years, 20 years. We offer a plenty of products that actually help you achieve your goals. First of all, life insurance products are more efficient in terms of post-tax returns that the investors get the moment we are looking at a horizon of 10 years or more. The architecture of these products are such that it actually entails regular payments of premium either on an annual basis or on a quarterly basis or whatever frequency you have opted for. This automatically leads to systematic investment and also binds you to long-term goal-based investing. Some of our products also offer the flexibility of the choice of asset allocation. Now, over and above that, we offer products where you can actually get a lump sum on maturity, which can help you achieve certain goals. The biggest strength that the life insurance products offer to an average investor is the life cover, which comes with most of these savings products. Going back to the point of financial security, which I mentioned some time back, I think it is important that we stop looking at insurance investing only from the point of view of making returns or making money. It provides a more comprehensive financial security, and that is the way we should be looking at it. If I may summarize, we as insurance sector, we help you achieve your goals when you are there, and we stand by your family when you are not there.
Manish, there are so many products that are available in the market. You have ULIPs, you have guaranteed products. So, what kind of insurance or life insurance products should people really go and invest with at this point in time?
Let us say you have a goal to build a certain amount of corpus. Now, if that is the goal, then there are two categories of saving products that we provide. One is called ULIPs, and this is the most popular product that the life insurance sector is known for. This product offers transparency. It offers choice of asset allocation. It is good for investors who have somewhat higher risk appetite. You have the benefit of tax advantage, life cover, and healthy investment returns. Something called a traditional savings product category. There you have got both guaranteed as well as non-guaranteed categories. But in both the categories, you have visibility of safety, a secured return, and an annual declaration of bonus, which is known to you. And you do not have to face any annual volatility. So those who have somewhat higher risk appetite, they can go for ULIPs. Those who have somewhat lower risk appetite, they are looking for some kind of guaranteed returns or a sort of some visibility of annual bonuses. They can go for traditional savings plans. Now, if your goal is to actually create a stream of income for yourself, let us say at the time of retirement, then you can go for annuities or some of our other guaranteed products where we also offer income plan. And then there is a third category, which is the term plan category, where we actually offer life cover as well as health covers, which means you should not be looking at only the investment products, but also the protection products like life or health covers.
An interesting question that we've been receiving from the audiences has been on interest rates. And with interest rates going down, people have been looking for guaranteed returns. So what are the solutions that you think you can share with regards to this?
Let me share some perspective on what has been happening globally. So interest rates in the last 15 years have been falling in most global markets. And as a consequence, it has made it extremely difficult for retired people to have some regular source of income. So if you are about to retire, or if you are looking for a regular source of income, say few years down the line, it is extremely important to secure your future by creating a steady stream of cash flows. With this in mind, we actually offer two kinds of products. One is a guaranteed savings product, where besides the life cover, we also offer a steady stream of cash flows for a specified number of years as at a specified rate of interest. The beauty of this architecture is that we provide guarantee not only on your existing investment, but also on your future premiums. In a way, with this product, you can assure yourself of a certain rate of return, not only on your existing investment, but on your future investments as well, and thereby minimize the interest rate risk. The other category is again very popular with the investors. It's the annuities category. Here you actually create a steady stream of income at an assured rate of return for life and not just for a fixed tenure. Further, you do not actually have to wait for a retirement to invest in this category. We actually have a deferred annuity product where you may choose to invest now to receive annuity few years down the line. The advantage of doing this is by investing early, you actually enhance the annual stream of income for the same quantum of investment. In fact, Priya, I'm happy to share with you and the audience here that we have an award-winning product. It's called iPru Guaranteed Pension Plan that has been voted Product of the Year in the Life Insurance, Retirement and Pension Plans category.
Right, that's an interesting point that we've heard from you. I want to talk to you about, investments in terms of contingencies. Should individuals have a certain contingency fund when it comes to, meeting some last-minute urgent emergency kind of expenditures on the healthcare kind of front? So, what is your perspective on the same?
It's a very pertinent question in the current context. First of all, it's absolutely essential to have a contingency or an emergency fund because it gives you cushion in times like these. While there is no fixed formula, the quantum that one should think of should be in the context of the monthly expenses that we have and overall savings. As a thumb rule, say about 6 months of expenses may be kept aside in a contingency fund to take care of such exigencies. People in the lower income bracket or those who have irregular sources of income may opt for a little higher number. On the other hand, if overall pool of savings is higher, then one may even opt for a little lower number. At the same time, let me also inform the audience that such savings should be parked in avenues where liquidity is high and immediate withdrawal is possible. I would like to emphasize here that for contingency funds, maximizing returns shouldn't be the objective for this part of the portfolio. Let me also take this opportunity to give another perspective on how one can prepare for the contingencies. And in a way, I have already covered that. Typically, when we think of emergencies, it is either due to a job loss or some kind of medical exigency. COVID has taught us that there could be situations when you can actually have both. Add to that the risk of life. Given these kind of situations, I think it is always good to back up an emergency fund with adequate life as well as health covers. As your savings pool grows, this will also obviate the need for carrying large amounts of emergency funds.
That's a very pertinent point that you made. But when you talk to a lot of people out there, the general confusion that they have in mind is that should we opt for only a health product or should we opt for only a life product? So, from your perspective, how would you address that concern? Is it important to have both the products out there? If you could share some of your experience with this question that you may have also faced.
Well, I think it's extremely important to have both life as well as health covers, and COVID actually has taught us this. In fact, we have a very beautiful plan here. It's called iProtect Smart, or we love to call it all-in-one term plan, where we actually provide cover for 34 critical illnesses besides life cover. I think it's extremely important that all of us who are carrying pure life covers, we should right away go and take top-ups for the health covers.
Well, moving on to the section where we have some queries that have come in from the audience. Manish, there are 4 questions that have come in so far. I'm going to take you through all these questions, and if you can share your expert insights with the audiences out there. So the first question is with regards to ULIPs. So the question is, from a long-term perspective, is investing in ULIPs a good option in this current scenario?
Well, investing in ULIPs is certainly a good option from a long-term standpoint. It is actually a unique product that packages multiple benefits into one. And let me take the audience through that. One, it combines life cover with scope for healthy investment returns, somewhere fulfilling the requirement of a comprehensive financial security. It offers you flexibility in choice of asset allocation. It's tax efficient, provided you carry an appropriate life cover. Quite importantly, as you spend more time in the product, it gets more efficient in terms of overall charges. Our belief is that if the time horizon of investment is beyond 10 years, ULIPs actually are one of the most efficient products in the entire investing space.
Right. Thanks so much for this response. Moving on to the second question. Now, we briefly touched upon this, but I'm going to read out the question once again. Given the uncertainties around us, is it enough to have just a term insurance, or should we top it up with a critical illness cover?
I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that we must top it up with a critical illness cover in case any one of you is running a plain, simple life cover.
All right. Thanks for this. Moving on to the next question. For a person who hasn't invested in any form of insurance earlier, what are some of the factors they should keep in mind or look into before making any sort of investment?
That's a good question. So let me take the audience through some of the nuances of insurance investing. So the primary purpose of taking insurance is to provide financial security to dependents. Hence, it's important to start looking at insurance investing the moment you get married or you have children. In case you have dependent parents, then anyways you should be buying insurance irrespective of your marital status. The earlier you start, the better it is. Another important factor to look at is your existing income. It is important that you buy adequate protection which can substitute your income so that that can actually take care of your dependents. The third factor, which again should be looked at in insurance investing, is using it to achieve your long-term goals. And this is something on which I have already elaborated. So these are the three factors one should be looking at when you are evaluating insurance.
Right, interesting insight into that. Moving on to our final question from the audience. How frequently should I review my investments as an investor?
Well, it is a matter of individual comfort and personal choices. I have seen some people who are very closely glued to the markets. They review it periodically, or I would say very regularly. At the same time, we have also got the extreme set of people who rarely look at their investments. I would like to believe that, first of all, it is extremely important to review. At the same time, one need not review on on a very regular basis. I think a mini review once in 6 months and a detailed review annually is good enough. The mini review should be done primarily to monitor the portfolio. The annual review should be done primarily to look at the overall portfolio in greater detail, how your portfolio has been behaving, how your investments are performing, whether the asset allocation is in line with what you have aspired for. Are you saving enough to meet your goals? These are the fundamental questions you should be asking when you are reviewing your. A serious review once a year and a small review or a mini review once in 6 months should be good enough for most investors.
All right, Manish, on that note, I think we've covered most of the important points that all the investors as well as the audiences watching us today have been thinking about, and given them a broad insight into how investments in 2021 should shape up and what their strategy should be when it comes to financial planning, securing the right kind of investments at these very uncertain times. Also, the contingency fund that you spoke about is something that everyone should keep in mind, specifically with healthcare costs really hitting the roof. Thank you very much, Manish, for joining us today for this very interesting chat. And the audiences, I'm sure, will be reaching out to us if they have any further questions, and we will direct these questions to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Priya.